The PCTV Network is very pleased to present Pottstown of Yesteryear, a pictorial tour of this region's rich history. And now, to our host, Mr. Pottstown, Bill Krause.
Welcome to the Pottstown of Yesterday show. I am Bill Krause. Each week at this time, I have a guest with me, and we talk about 25 minutes and show pictures about Pottstown and the area in years gone by. The who, what, where, and when of a different subject each week. This week, the subject will be corner grocery stores. There were 79 in years gone by, like around 1953 or so. A lot of corner stores, and we'll show you some pictures of them, before and after shots of some. My guests today are Danny Burnish from the Burnish grocery store right over the hill here, and Dave Kearns from the Pottstown Historic Society, Vice President. So we'll start today with the first store being Burnish's. And that's at Warren and Lincoln. And Danny, why don't you tell us something about Burnish's, how it got started, what year, and a little bit about how it stayed in the family tree all these many years.
It was started in 1937 by my grandmother and grandfather, and they wanted something to do just to spend time other than their other job. And then in 1955, my dad added the hot dogs, hot sausage, and food. It became a mini sandwich shop, so to speak, and these are the things that kept us going through all those years.
Well, here's a real good shot here on the screen right now of the original Dan Burnish, right?
That's my grandfather and my grandmother.
And grandmother, and her name was Sadie.
Yeah, Sarah.
Really good
Sadie
lady.
was her nickname.
Yes. And this is a shot of the store as it is today.
Good friend Will coming out there, 6'9", he made it out.
Okay. And it hasn't changed that much, really, on the outside. Originally, there were big windows there, and they boarded them up over the years for various reasons. Now, this is one of your competitors, where it used to be Markowitz's store at 450 Beach Street.
And it's become Mike's Decors.
Later on, it became Mike's Decor in the later years, yes, before it shut down. And Arnold Markowitz and Jake Markowitz owned this for years down there. And their big claim to fame, if you remember, was frozen bananas and sweetie pies.
And they were also open, and in those days, no one had cars. Everyone went to the corner stores.
They had long hours, is what you mean, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And the thing that really made the stores go, well, first of all, there was no supermarkets to run to. They were real convenient. But probably a real big item is money was a little tight back then, too. And fortunately, most of the owners, property owners there at the stores, if you needed a quart of milk or a loaf of bread, what have you, and you didn't have any money, you could run up there and say to the big Brun, hey, put this on the book till Friday, I'll pay you Friday.
Yeah.
It was really before they used of credit cards they are now.
You couldn't do those in the big stores.
No. Well, the big stores weren't there yet. The big Brun was there before the big stores. So this is another shot of going down Lincoln Avenue on Washington Street. Right now, as you can see, it's just a vacant lot. However, in years gone by, when the corner stores were a thing, there was another one here, and the name escapes me right now, but it was a wooden building, almost the whole width of that lot along Washington Street.
And later it became a barber shop after that.
Oh, that's right, it did, yes.
And it's only 2 blocks from where we're located currently.
Right, and you'll see if you go through these pictures, it's only a block or 2 blocks away before there's another one. Here's a perfect example. This is 1 block behind the Burnish complex, and this years ago was Dot Sands.
Right.
She had the store there, and I can't remember the other lady.
As I grew up, the church owned it. It was called the Second Baptist
which is
Liberty store.
Right, the way it is today, and they have classrooms in there, I guess, and they do a good job of maintaining the building and not letting it run down. If you go down, still everything's in the area pretty close together, and we're down here now. I have a bad angle here. David, you know where this one
That's
is?
Jefferson and Franklin.
Right. The Rosenberries What was
Marion
the name?
Rosenberry.
Marion Rosenberry at Jefferson and Franklin. This is Franklin and
Oh,
Jefferson.
the
in
Jefferson
front of
Food
it.
Market.
Yep. And the building, of course, is still there. As you can see now, it's covered up. And I believe in this building also now is an apartment. This is back Franklin Street, only a half a block away. See, here's what I'm telling you. They were all over the place. This was between Lincoln and Jefferson. And it was Drumheller's. And this is at the alley there. And again, just a little corner store. Now this one, probably more people know this or can recognize it anyway. Today, the building looks almost the same, except it was
The Amol's.
Amol store, yes. Warren Amol and his wife ran this for many years, little corner store.
That was my mother's corner store growing up. She lived right up the street from that.
Okay, right. And this is Warren Street, and this is King Street in front of it. Today, Charlie has his barber shop in there. That's the picture you see on the screen right now. So it's another really nice corner store there. Now here we go to Hartenstein's Food Market, and this was at 666 Walnut Street. Now this is getting a little bit bigger than the
It was more like
corner
a
store.
current supermarket compared to the other corner stores.
Exactly.
Which what Frank Rosenberry basically patterned his story after.
Yes, that was another set of stores in between the big supermarkets of today. Now, not only was Frank Hartenstein, this was his grocery store, but he also was in the catering business too.
Yeah, I have some chairs from his catering business in my garage.
Okay.
They eventually went to just catering in the later years.
Oh, they're right.
Well, the
After the
store
store
burned down.
closed.
Yeah, they moved up onto Beach Street.
Well, this is what's left of it. And like Danny
Yeah.
said, I don't know if you heard that or not, the store did in fact burn down. And for a while it stayed vacant. And finally the borough of Pottstown bought it. Well, I'm not sure, the county, someone bought it. Anyway, the borough put a little pocket playground in there. Now that's 666 Walnut Street. This is about 614 Walnut Street between Adams and Warren Street. Joe S. Stryker, I think the guy's name was. I know it was S. Stryker, I think it was Joe, had this store, and his butchering shop was over there in the wing light, and he butchered his meat right in there. And you'll often see him walk around the store with a white apron on with blood all over it from he was in back butchering when a customer
Yeah,
come
when he was
in.
taking a break. Yeah.
Yeah, well, no, in the back room he was working when he was in the back room.
But you see him outside sometimes
Yeah,
also.
right. He'd be out walking around with this
Right.
bloody apron on because they did their own butchering that time, at the time period. This is an American store. American stores were all over town also, a corner grocery store of sorts. This is the American House on Washington Street. And you can see that the American stores we're talking about was right next to it. Throughout the years, it was the American store. Then it became Canning's. The people today probably remember, if they remember it at all, as Canning's drugstore was in there. And it was on High Street. And see, at this time period, High Street was also the official Route 422. And here's the Acme Market. I mean,
There was no bypass.
this is the store, right. This is the same store, and this
The
neighborhood.
parallel parking was gone again. They went back to the angle parking.
Yeah. So what's here today? This is a lot that you would see. This is a parking lot belongs in Montgomery County for the high-rise apartments here, high on Washington Street. They did a beautiful job after the fire of the
awesome.
American House and the Canning Building and all that. That was a big building, if you recall.
And a big fire.
And a big fire, yes. And finally the county got around to making it into it. Did a real nice job there with the trees and all, with Tommy Hilton's help, I guess. But it's really very nice parking lot there, and much needed there. All right, now this is down on South Washington Street, right over the bridge, and it's the Prince Bakery Complex.
The infamous Princess.
Yes, but they
Yes.
also had a grocery store up in there, and a corner store type, but it was in the middle of the block for whatever. And on a Sunday morning, it was just unreal. Down there at 5 o'clock in the morning, the place is all jammed up.
Well, in those days, all the big stores were closed on Sundays,
Yeah.
as were the gas stations, and there were no convenience stores to go to.
That's right.
So everyone went to a corner store for everything they needed. And also, people didn't have cars to get to places anyway.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't have cars in those days. People forget that.
And
Right.
Prince's
So
made their
walking
own.
was much easier to a corner store than it was to go to
They made
another
their
store.
own bread and all right their rolls, and they delivered door to door. Robbie and Prince, Paulie Prince, Robbie, and Bill too. I think were some of the delivery. This is a Junior Mack truck. That's why it's on here. Very few Junior Mack trucks were made, and this is one of their new bread wagons at the time, and one of the few vans that Mack made. It's called right on that sign if you could read it, Junior Mack. And this is how they delivered a product. And they went door to door, and they also dropped their stuff off at stores like Rosenberry's and
Even our store,
Markowitz's.
we sold Prince's products too.
All right.
I remember sending my kids around the corner to Prince's because we lived on Cherry Street. And Sadie always would hand them out some candy.
Sadie and
Yeah.
Mary, right? And the other one was Jules, whatever. This is out on High Street in the 400 block where Wells Fargo Bank is today. It was called the Southern Food Market, owned by Joe Bakke. It was a corner store, but it specialized in fruits, vegetables, and on Fridays, fish. Now, you didn't need a calendar to know when it was Friday if you were in this area here. You had this fish in, you could
Smell it.
You could smell it, yes.
And everyone ate fish on Fridays in those days.
Yes. And this was torn down in later years, cleared away, because right next to it was the Castleberry Mansion, which was the Pottstown first library. Here we are at 3rd and, I'm sorry, I got that wrong, Beach and York Street. It was Prince's store down there, too, another one. And as you can see, all frame building, there was a barber shop inside of it. And the streets were all dirt yet, as you can see. It's a little muddy there today. But notice that the big signs for circuses. There was a big thing in town with circuses. And
All
they
over
put
the
it-
country, all
Yeah.
Right.
stops.
Put those big signs all over the place. This is 2nd and York Street. If you get down 2nd Street at York, you'd run right into it. It was, again, an American store. And then moving right down on South Hanover Street, this is considered a store, a corner store, and it's Sheridan's, as it was on the opposite side of the street it is today, right behind the bank. And they made their own peanuts and or roasted them, whatever. Here's these big bags of peanuts right here. And that machine is still in there today, or at least a similar one, that big silver drum. Now this is in the arcade building high in Charlotte Street in the southwest corner. This is Barner's corner store. As you walk back Charlotte Street, this would be on your right-hand side going towards the railroad track. And it's in the arcade building, and the arcade building was quite a building that led to the back where the farmer's market was. This is the farmer's market. It was in the back. You can see a nice, big, clean farmer's market. And as you walk back the hallway from High Street back to the market here, we actually had a mall before the malls were a thing. We didn't call it a mall, we called it an arcade. But it was very nice farmer's market. It was really busy in those time periods. A lot of vendors, a lot of people. As you went back through the mall, on both sides of it, there were all kind of shops besides Barnes. H.S. Smith, the stationery, started in there. Anyway, as time went by, it didn't become financially feasible, I guess. And eventually, the merchants downtown had it torn down. Pottstown tore it down, so they would have a parking lot there. That's a high Charlotte Street parking lot. That's what was there before. Right across the street, if you were standing there, turn around, you would see what today is Lastic Market, but back in the older days, you can see right there another corner store, a little bit bigger than Burnish's and Markowitz's, but it was a people's market. And today it's a bigger store, but in between time, the Charming Shop was in there, and what was the other one? There's another one I thought of the other day, but forgot right now. But anyway, the people's market. Earlier, the store was not Lastic, it was Block's Furniture, then the Lastic took over later on. This is the back of that food market on King Street. They had a parking lot facing King Street. And this is just another one of their delivery vans. They deliver too.
The alley entrance, so to
Yes,
speak.
yes, yes. This is Walnut and Hanover Street. I think the address is 125 to 127. This at this time period shows the candy store, penny candy store that was there by the Hatfield family, Arthur Hatfield. And today, this is Jeannie Carterston in the doorway there. The building hardly changed. And they've been in the lock business back there, making keys and selling locks for 29 years, he told me the other day. And the inside still looks like it was back in the 40s and the 50s.
Yeah, I've been in there, so it does. Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
On the right down there was always, most of the time, some kind of beauty shop or flower shop on the other store there. This is an interesting thing. Gerald Hatfield's store at Evans and Washington. Davey told me he was down at, where was it before this?
Before that, he had a place at 501 High Street.
Where the high rise is now.
Yeah, he called it Kitchen Products, I think it was.
Kettle, wasn't Kettle in there or something? Because he made
kitchen food products.
Okay.
Or cooked products, something like that. It was something similar to that.
Yeah, he made his own potato chips, and they were good. And I don't know if he made them down there on High and Washington Street. Not sure they were doing it here, but he had a building up at 555 Lincoln Avenue where he had 3 or 4 employees in there. And we lived.
Made potato chips.
Yeah, the Krause family lived right inside of it. His wall was our property line. And Jake Porter and Gus worked in there for years making potato chips.
Which we sold in our store way back into the 50s.
Yep, they were hot. You come out there hot, you couldn't beat them. This is on Washington Street, right at the alley there between Chestnut and Walnut. And it was Sheffy and Yeager. It was on the end building here. There's 3 or 4 other little shops in this row, and that's how it looks today. But it was another candy store, a penny candy store and grocery store on the corner. This one here is at 419 Beach Street. It was Snell's. And that unique feature what a lot of stores had in that time period, you can see there's a canopy over the sidewalk. And a lot of stores
just
had
come
that.
all the way to the curb in those days.
Yeah, it still does today.
Yeah.
It's up there. That picture was just taken the other day. Here we're at, help me Dave, Rosenberry's complex, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is Rosenberry's second store. The first store is right across the street on this side, and that's where he started. He had his bakery and all in there. And this is a knitting mill by Brooke Lessig, owned it, and they built it for a knitting mill, and when that became available, he moved over there. Rosenberry's moved over there, which most people knew until a couple of years ago, and it would be a dollar store in the next week, not the next couple of months. Anyway, Yon's is probably the second oldest corner store left in Pottstown. Is that right, Danny?
Well, I'm sure but it's been owned by 3 different people, but it's still been ongoing, and it's been there. I'm not sure when they started, but the Yawn family himself was very successful, and then Mr. Pace took it over, was extremely successful, and it's doing still well today. So how long it's been there, I don't know, but it's been 3 different owners.
But the difference between the two is the Burnish is a continuous family-owned business.
Same family, correct.
This one has changed 3 or 4 different times. Now we're out on High York Street. That's the Achenbach Apartments here, the big building. And on the first floor, at one time, it was an American store, like those other ones you saw there. And right now, it's a ball bearing store there. But it was a corner store years ago. Like you said, it was 79 in that one time period, at one time. All right, so now we're moving down High Street a little bit further. Today, you all would recognize this as Redner's Quick Shop right there around High and Franklin and Evans Street. But it was an A&P at that time, Atlantic and Pacific, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And there were other ones in town, A&Ps, which later on became the big A&Ps, like the one up in High and Beach Street.
And there was an A&P, which now was tore down and became Wawa.
Yes.
And a Super Fresh was there for a while,
right,
too.
They took over after A&P.
Yes. This is the lot aside of the High and Washington Street buildings. And this is out of order, really messed me up here. But then, I'm not sure exactly what this one was. I thought it was High and Washington Street. But we'll have to wait a second till it turns.
Oh, I recognize that one.
Yeah.
There you are, back to where we started.
Back in the cellar of our house.
Yeah. And Burnish was actually started about 3 houses down, right?
It was there for like a year and a half.
Yeah. And the
My
house,
grandfather got tired of leaving the house, so he came back.
and dug his own cellar out and put a store in there. Yeah. So that's the end of our pictures for today. But we had many of other stores in town. Can you remember, Dave, you're from the East End. We didn't have
Well, the
anything
East
from
End, we had Byright.
Okay.
That
That
was-
was comparable to Hartenstein's.
That was like a mini supermarket.
Right.
An earlier one.
Yeah.
That started up in the 50s there.
And we mentioned about the Hartensteins on Walnut Street. And I think you said, is there some relationship between the two and Harry Hartenstein and the Queen and Price Street?
Yeah, he was at 1113 Queen Street. Harry's little store there.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
building's still there.
Yeah, yeah.
I think he quit that in about 1980. Yeah, he's related to the other Hartensteins, but I'm not sure exactly how. There were sons of Elmer that were Harry, but I doubt if Harry comes from Harry. But he is a relative of the Hartensteins.
Well, he was really an older, you might say, person that owned this store. I mean, he was up there pretty many years, was he?
He was probably in his 70s, and he was still running the store.
Yeah.
Because I remember him in his 90s, there on Queen Street. That was a well
Did he butcher?
sought out their store.
Did he butcher his own meats too? I always saw him with white aprons.
I don't
on.
believe he did.
No.
No, I don't believe he did.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
go ahead, Denny.
Well, there's actually so many stores that we haven't even covered because, like you said, there were 79 of them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's people listening and says, well, you forgot this store and that store. We didn't forget it. We just can't have time
No.
to get around to them all.
Well-
And the area of town you were from actually gives you the remembrance of what corner store you were
Exactly.
joined to. That's like I said, my mother's corner store was Amol's. And when I grew up, I was just right there. So I had a corner store. I didn't have to go anywhere for a corner store.
Yeah. Yeah. But they say that's what Dave was down the East End. And he said the other day when he talked about it.
Yeah, every area of town had their own corner
He
stores.
wasn't too good with the rest of the town, but that was his own
Yeah, we had
neighborhood.
that little store across from Rupert School. It was actually, it's a garage today.
Cadans.
Yeah, it's a
Cadon,
garage
actually, yes,
today,
I
but
know,
I got a lot of
The
penny
lady
candy
whose
out of
father
that.
owned it, her friend is a good friend of mine. So it just shows how things are related when you're in a small town like this. And that's why there's so many people out there can relate to some of the stories we're telling, and they're now screaming that we forgot this.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
we can't remember it all. We don't have enough time to cover it all. But this is just to get people thinking and to remember those times when things were different.
Yeah.
Well,
But
and if anybody out there has information on other corner stores, their family ran it, or they have information about how it was run and all that, and they remember things about it, they should come to the Historic Society, or they should call us and let us know so we can put it in our our records there,
Yeah, well,
so
you know-
that it's there for the rest of the generations.
that's a well-kept secret, really. It's a shame. It's at 568 High Street. And what days are you open down there, David?
We're open the second and fourth Sunday of the month, 1 to 4.
Right.
We will be closed in the month of December.
But you can come down there and research or look up some other buildings that you might have known, because there's thousands of pictures down there, just like you saw on the screen here. And that you go down, and Dave is one of the historians, Clara Hoss is another one. And they know things pretty well down there, and they'll have it pretty well organized and take you right to, well, here's a picture of what you're talking about. You solved many of argument down there. People come down arguing about this and that. And that's what's good about this. So we could, all three of us could have different opinions of what was in this building or that building, and all three of us could be right. It's just that we were talking different time periods. Exactly. And that's where most of the...
We're spanning decades.
Yeah, yes. That's where most of the arguments stopped. And then, say, well, we were all right if you go through that. And then our time's come to the end for this show here. So I want to thank you and Danny and Dave for coming out here today and helping me with the show here. So this is the first show of the Pottstown of Yesteryear. And we'll continue to show old pictures, and anyone has any
Bill
information.
Krause. This program has been made possible by Dan Burnish and his famous sausage and hot dog sandwiches, and Informed Family Financial Services. Jeff Bush, serving the Pottstown community for more than 20 years. Tune in next time for another historical voyage into Pottstown's rich past. For the PCTV network, powered by TELUS Vision. Good night, and God.
The first meeting is really a get-to-know-you meeting. We're going to sit down. Typically, the meeting will last about an hour. We're having a conversation. My job is to ask them some questions about where they are, what some of their goals are, what some of the key objectives they have in meeting with me, where they are to this point, and really what brought them in to see me. And now I'm at the point in my career where I have a lot of people that are dependent upon me to provide them with all the guidance and all the advice that we do on a day-to-day basis.
Burnish's since 1937. Started by Dan and Sadie Burnish as a mini grocery and candy store. It is the longest running single-owned family business in Pottstown. We're in the fourth generation. In January 2nd, 1955, my dad, Dick Burnish, added hot dogs and hot sausage. He was the first to put dogs in a corner store, and their taste was awesome. They are still the same dogs and sausage we use today. We have added hoagies and cheesesteaks, which have more meat than any around. Most people say it's the best they ever had in their life. We also have water ice, which is something new for the kids. I'm Dan Burnish. Please come and see us.